Hello, everybody. We've got a show that promises to be mildly interesting for your listening and watching enjoyment. First, let's address a new angle on winding down a law firm. The kind that gets your ass paid. So you're going to want to pay attention to this one. See what I did there? Then we talked with Keith Lee, the inventor of Velcro, bet you didn't know that, about big firm lawyers and their finances. Finally, I take things way down home, all the way to Alabama. Roll Tide, or War Eagle, depending on your preference. Did I do that right? So, lawyers are not the savviest business people ever. No offense, guys. That's how I've been able to stay in business for as many years as I have. So I want to talk a little bit about succession planning, which is actually a big topic for bar associations, especially. They're always asking me to do succession planning programs. But I kind of throw a curve when they ask me about that because I have a very specific take on this. So when you talk to a lot of people about like winding down a law firm, and there are like a ton of different bar associations that have content about how to do this. They have guides, like lengthy guides, like 150, 160 pages. And they're all about, how do I stop practicing law and get out? But they're never about like, how do I sell the law firm? And that's what I think people should be focused on. Because I think the other stuff is relatively straightforward, given all the technology tools that are now available. So when you're talking about like transitioning a law firm to somebody, if you have an unexpected accident or you become disabled or you pass away, it helps to have a backup attorney if you're a solo lawyer. So get a backup attorney. You're asked to do that on your malpractice insurance anyway. And when you fill that out, you're probably just picking someone randomly and not even telling them that they're your backup attorney. So maybe tell them, and you can create a backup attorney contract if you want. Those are available. But really, this is more about like giving people access to your files and their locations and the passwords to access the software in which they're saved. And in a cloud-based environment, that should be way easier than it was 10, 20 years ago when a lot of these guidebooks came out. You get a password management software that's an enterprise version. People can access your stuff in terms of where the software is and where the data is. Like I'll tell you, I've closed down law firms before. And one of the big issues has always been like, well, where's the stuff? How do we get into the bank account? How do we get into the software account? That should be easier than ever before. So I don't want to spend a lot of time on that. And a lot of that, like, how do I transition data? How do I set up a backup attorney? Or how do I transition this to a lawyer in the community? Or how do I give this to my associate? Like, you're viewing the law firm as a liability in that context. And if you're looking to shut down your practice 5 years from now or any longer term, you should be looking at building the law firm as an asset that you can actually sell and get money off of. So how do you do that? Well, you want to generate as much revenue as you can. I know, no shit, Sherlock. Should I make more money in my legal business? Yeah, you should. That's something you should think about doing. So that, that. But then, you may have certain ways to do that. Do I build a marketing program that's different than what I'm doing now? Do I change my pricing structure? Like now would be the time to think about those things. But I think the biggest thing in terms of transitioning a law firm, selling a law firm, is building out turnkey processes. So if you've got a firm and you don't have any kind of workflow management built in whatsoever, it is time to do that shit like yesterday. And the way I look at it is there's 4 workflows that you want to have as a law firm owner. There are intake processes. So how do we like onboard people and convert them to clients? Then there's case processes. So what's the workflow for moving through a case in the firm? Like, how do I take the steps necessary to close this file? Then there's administrative processes. Like, okay, what happens if we need to put new toner in the printer? Is it a fucking fire drill every time we need to do that? Or is that something that I necessarily have to think about doing on a high level? And do I have to write that down somewhere? You should probably write it down somewhere or save it somewhere in an electronic file so people know it's coming. And then what about marketing processes? So do I have turnkey marketing approaches? How do I get clients? Is that systematized? Can I hand that off to somebody else who's going to be able to do it on a go-forward basis? Basically, if you can say, hey, here's how we get clients, it's not attached to me personally. Here's how we manage the firm, it's not attached to me personally. Here's how we run cases, it's not attached to me personally. Here's how we intake files, it's not attached to me personally. You're in good shape because that business is less reliant on you than a traditional law firm would be. The reason why law firms hardly have any value, the reason why law firms sell for like 1x gross revenue is that everything is tied to a single attorney. Name of the firm's tied to that attorney's name. If you can move on from that and create a business that's more transferable, the value of your service goes up. So some of the stuff we haven't talked about, adding a brand name, right? That's part of the marketing that you can sell to somebody. There's a whole host of things that you can do. Now, that will require you, if you're going to be using processes, if you're going to be trying to automate things, which you should also be trying to do, to update whatever software you've got in your practice right now. So first of all, you want to be cloud-based with everything you're running. And then you want to have a certain set of softwares available. So I talked about enterprise software for password management. You should definitely be considering that. You also want to have cloud-based productivity software. So email, documents, file sharing. You want to have cloud-based accounting software. You want to have cloud-based case management software. You want to have cloud-based customer relationship management software, CRM, so you can set up that intake process. You want to have cloud-based task management software, project management software, because if you got workflows, you kind of need that. And then ideally, you may want to have human resources management software as well, so that you can figure out a way to make sure that whoever's taking over your practice has access to information about your employees and how they get paid and how they're managed. So if you're thinking about winding down your law practice, think twice about that. And instead, start thinking about how you might want to sell your law practice. Now, there's one person I would never sell out, and that's Keith Lee. He's up next. Well, I've effectively run out of things to say, which is awkward because this is a podcast. So I'm going to back away slowly into these bushes. Now I'm just fucking with you. That sounds awful. Let's interview our guest instead. That seems like a better idea. Our guest today is Keith Lee, a partner at Big Law Investor. That's right, Keith Lee. He's back. How are you?
I'm great. It's good to be here. I'm back, still around.
So I was trolling through your LinkedIn because I was like, I haven't talked to Keith in a little while. What's he been up to? And I think we first started talking when you were doing Lawyer Smack, which is an online lawyer community, which is still around. Is that right?
Still, now it's called Sidebar.
Sidebar, rebrand.
Well, IP issues. Originally it was Lawyer Slack, and I owned that domain.
Right. Wait,
originally Lawyer. Lawyer
does someone
Slack.
own Slack? No, go ahead.
Someone owned a company named Slack. The weirdest thing is they followed me on everything back when I had like a verified account and you couldn't buy a verified account.
That's really
they
funny.
were following me, like their developers were following me, because I think I was just one of the first lawyers. Like, this was like 2016, 2017.
You were early. Yes, you were pioneer.
Yeah, I was very early on the Slack train.
Yeah,
and so I think they were kind of like, yeah, man, go for it. Like, promote us to lawyers and law firms. We dig that, and so they were okay with it.
Yeah.
But then I was like,
maybe not so much.
And so then I switched it to law. I was like, well, let's change the L to an M, and it's kind of funny. Lawyer Smack, or Talking Smack.
Yeah.
Then a female, a woman, European attorney. She was like, oh, Lawyer Smack, like mwah, smack. And I was like,
you're like,
sure,
no, not at all. No,
not at all. And so eventually more IP stuff. So it still exists. It's sidebar.net. So yeah, Sidebar still exists. And yeah, that's probably how we first met. I was writing for Above the Law around then for a while.
My God, yeah. Wow.
You were too for a little bit.
Yep.
Then I was speaking, talking, consulting.
Yes.
I went and I was the chief marketing officer for Case Status
Yeah.
for 3 years.
I remember that. Put a pin in that. We're going to talk about that later.
Oh yeah, we'll come back to that. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes. Now,
And then
that's when you started doing like the big law investor thing, which is what I wanted to talk
yeah,
to
then
you
I
about
left Case Status.
to go
Yeah, and
to do
then
that eventually.
Josh, who is also a lawyer. Josh was a PE M&A guy at Goodwin Procter, so biggest of Big Law.
Yeah.
And he had been running Big Law Investor, and he and I had been friends for years. Originally, from me doing Associates Mind about the law, lawyer Slack, now Sidebar, and we just started talking about things, and we were like, we should just join forces. I mean, we were on very similar wavelengths about how we thought
Yeah.
about the legal industry, how we thought about technology, how our approach to work, and what we wanted to do. So we formed Voltron, and
Yes. That's how we know we're old. I'm like, oh, Voltron. Hell yeah.
yeah, I know. You would appreciate the reference, which is why I went there.
I do.
So we got together, and yeah, I've been together ever since, and have just been growing it like crazy. So
Would it
it's been a
be
fun ride.
so would it be fair to say that like the lawyer smack stuff, associate mind stuff, which you also did, was that more angled to like solo small firm attorneys and then you moved up the ladder? Or was it more like a smattering of big
It
law,
was
small law, mid-sized law?
Yeah, it was a smattering. I feel
Hmm.
like because at the time I was practicing as a small law firm, and that's what technically, although I veered all the time, and David Latt always had to be like, Keith, get back. I was supposed to be, because Brian
Like, get
Tannenbaum
back in
had
your
been,
box.
yeah, get in your lane, Keith. God damn it. Brian Tannenbaum had been the small firm columnist at
Oh, yeah.
ATL,
Yeah, I remember that guy.
right? And Brian was Brian.
That was fucking nuts.
It was. And so he left. And that's when David said, Keith, we want you to come do it. So I was the small firm columnist at Above the Law, but I was writing Associates Mind, which was about for associates, which attracted,
Yeah,
the
big law
full
associates.
spectrum of
Yeah.
people who were, small firm associates, big firm associates. And then I was running for Above the Law, which is generally more speaking a big law, mid to big law audience anyway. So it became this real weirdness of who kind of
Yeah.
knew me and followed
Yeah.
me. And I'd say even today, in the Sidebar community, there's plenty of solo small firm people. There's plenty of big law people. There's a lot of in-house folks. It's just a total mishmash of folks all across the industry.
I gotta tell you, man, like the big law pivot is all right. I mean, I will tell you, I've never walked into a small office and seen like a suckling pig, but I have seen that in a big law firm.
Oh yeah.
I'm like, this is pretty sweet.
Yeah, people again, it's one of those things. 70% of there's 1.3 million lawyers in the United States. 65-70% of them are solo or small firms, and so that's typically when you interact with lawyers, that's where they are. Big law is maybe 100,000 lawyers, maybe.
Right. Yeah.
So you're less than 10%. You're talking 8% of the industry, and it is just a different world. Like, it's a
totally
completely
is.
different world.
Yeah.
It's the whole, lawyer salaries are bimodal, right? Everyone's like, oh, the average lawyer salary is this. Well, there's this kind of big hump at like the 60,000,
Right.
and it goes way over. And then suddenly at like $200,000,
Yep.
this is a giant spike.
Yeah, like a rocket.
And it's like, look, unless you're right here, you're not making this money,
Right.
And that's why, that's where it becomes this huge, blood sport to get into the T14 schools.
It's a good way
can
to
you get
describe it.
into
Yeah.
Harvard, Yale, Stanford, Chicago, Michigan, Georgetown? Because if you can get in there and make good grades, you'll get into big law. And we're a big law investor. We are the source of truth for big law associate salaries, and starting big law associate salaries right now are $245,000.
Yeah.
So you can graduate law school and be 25, 26 years old, a kid, and be making $250,000 a year at your first job.
So much cocaine. Anyway, I didn't say that.
So much.
So can I attempt like an elevator pitch for Big Law Investor? You tell me how
Sure,
wrong
go
I
for
am. Personal financial management advice for big firm attorneys, associates, and affiliated products. How was that?
That's pretty good.
All right, well, correct me. I'm fine.
No,
I can take
that's good.
criticism.
I mean, certainly. I mean, if someone comes to our site right now, that's definitely what you would assume. You're like, oh, this is
it's a lot. It's a lot of information in addition to obviously like stuff you're providing them.
Yeah, I mean, the whole premise originally of the site was, it's so weird. If you go like into medicine and doctors, there are a dozen sites by doctors for doctors about personal finance and how to manage their money and how to do things. From, surgeons to general practitioners to all those different things.
Yeah.
And there's more lawyers than there are doctors.
Right.
We're the only site about money for lawyers.
It's crazy.
Like the only one.
Yeah, it's really lacking. Yeah.
And so nominally we attract big law attorneys, but realistically speaking, we attract essentially any lawyer who starts being like lawyer money ? What do I like? We're the default choice because we are the only choice.
Yeah.
We provide immense amounts of information. I mean, if someone's like, that's a good idea, I'll start. Good luck. You're 10 years late from us. I mean, we've got so much information.
There's a lot of shit on there. Yeah, I will say that.
We provide so much, and it's all like just for free. You can get it. But if I was, we've grown a lot in the sense that, we've actually got another company, a new brand coming out later this year. Because
can you talk about that, or is that like secret?
Not yet, because we're like 60 days from getting approval through the USPTO for the name. We had to do this sort like IP.
Come back on. We'll talk about it then. Yeah,
IP is bullshit, and like all intellectual property, is particularly trademark attorneys know that their practice area is the most bullshit area of practice of law because it's a complete roll of the dice. It's like, what examiner do you get? Who knows? One might be like, this is fine. The next one may be like, that's horrible. I mean, precedent out the window. Doesn't matter. It's all about who you get and how they feel that day. Anyway, and I complained about this to our IIP lawyers, and they're like, yeah, we know,
They're like, sure. Hey, it was Keith again, as they slowly hang up the phone. So
they're in the community, so they got to hang around.
Yeah, exactly. So, okay, so we'll talk about that when you're ready later on.
Yeah, really quickly, is that we've grown. Like,
that's great.
We need a bigger tent because we get a lot of doctors now. We get CPAs. We get vets. We get all these other people. CRNAs who are coming to us for all this information. And yeah, there's a bit of a cognitive dissonance happening where they're like, oh, this seems to be really good financial advice and information, but
it's for lawyers.
But I'm a CRNA, and it seems like it applies to me, but it says big law everywhere.
It's funny.
And
you
so
slap a label on it, and people are like, that can't be me. Can't possibly use that information.
The advice is 100% accurate, but it's not for me, I guess.
Moving on.
So,
yeah. Okay. So, when you first, I guess the analogous, so if you're like 25 years old or whatever, and you're making like $250K, I kind of feel like that's similar to like you're 19, you get drafted by a Major League Baseball team, and all of a sudden you get $1 million in your pocket. Like, you're going to fuck that up, right?
Probably on some level. I mean, that's why the site, really started existing, was like, because it's usually it's a kind of combo 1-2 punch. I think the most recent statistics from the ABA is a couple of years ago. It's probably changed, but the average law student graduates law school with $165,000 in student debt.
Forgot about student loans.
So
that part sucks.
So which if you can make big law, no problem. If you're on that other curve of the bimodal thing we were talking about earlier, you're screwed.
Yeah.
It's a big problem. They're like, I want to help people. I'm going to go be a public defender. Good luck having 2 mortgage payments for the rest of your life.
I know.
I
know. No 3D pancake printers for you, sir.
You're not getting that. But even with a big lost salary, you need to plan, you need to create a budget. You need to think through what you do. Suddenly, you're making 20 grand, 25 grand a month. All right. That's a lot of money. And yeah, a lot of people are like, sweet, I'm going to go get a, brand new 5 series and I need a cool place to live and this, that, and the other. And
hoverboard, maybe, I don't know. Just throw it out there.
Yeah, all types of stuff. But, it's about how can you be mindful with your money and, really lock it down. Cause, otherwise, it's golden handcuffs, right? You're on a hedonistic treadmill of, I'm making all this money, but then I'm spending all this money. And you've got to figure out how to, signal interrupt that cycle in some way such that you know what you're doing with your money and be intelligent about it.
Yeah.
Such that, you don't get trapped there because, all right, you make $250,000 a year. Awesome. You're probably going to be required to bill 60 to 70 hours a week. That's not work 60 to 70 hours a week. That's bill 60, 70 hours a week, which is very different.
If you're listening, is fucking hard.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. I mean, that's saying, are you going to the break room? Are you getting a cup of coffee? That's not billable time. That's not time at work. You might be in the office, but that's not billable.
Put that coffee down. Coffee is for closers.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the billable hour requirements in big law are incredible.
Nice. Yeah.
So it's a
one of the things you were talking about, I think was interesting is you talked about student loan payments, you talked about mortgage payments, and you're basically like, hey, you're going to be paying 2 mortgages for the rest of your life, which is the way you want to look at it. But you guys work on both sides of that equation, right? So you actually help people with like student loan refinancing or get them pointed in the right direction for that. And you have a product called like JD Mortgage, right? Which is how I first heard about this. So you want to talk a little bit about that? Because I think that's really interesting.
Yeah. So definitely on the student loan front, people, if you get into certain student loan programs, especially now, all the student loan stuff, everything that Biden had done with repay and everything, all that's going to get nuked. And so we're going to be back into this, rate environment where people are going to be graduating law school with student loans around probably 9% in terms of what they're paying.
It's fucking crazy. That's why I don't talk about my student loan interest rate that I had.
Yeah. So if you can get a job that's really solid, like a big law job where you have the money, refinancing can make sense. We have exclusive relationships with pretty much all the student loan refi companies. If you come to us, we'll connect you. We'll get you bonuses, $500 bonus, $1,000 cashback bonus. If you go through us, we've negotiated these things with them to where we can get people a little bit of extra money, get them better rates. So that's one side of it. And then, on the residential side and the home side, we trademarked, we created a JD Mortgage, which a JD Mortgage is a lot of banks, not all banks, have certain, these are things called sort of professional loan programs. Yeah. Meaning if you've got a JD, if you've got an MD, you've got the right acronym after your last name, they will give you way better loans than you can get conventionally just walking in the door of a bank.
Yeah, that's why I never even knew that. And I was a lawyer who bought a house like 15 years ago.
Yeah. No PMI, 0% down up to, depends on the bank, but I mean, I know banks that will, for lawyers, no PMI, 0% down up to $1 million financing. So meaning,
that's wild.
If you've got the right job and everything's the right, you've got some employment history, and you say, I want to buy this home, they won't charge you PMI, and they'll say, here's $1 million, go for it. Ta-da, Now those are hard to find, and that's what we've done, right? We know all those banks. We have them all in a giant backend database. People come to us, and again, no one can advertise JD Mortgage because we own it. So if you see someone sees JD Mortgage somewhere, tell me, because
you got it.
We're gonna come after them.
gonna report that shit. You'll be like Slack.
Yeah. That's the part of IP law I do like.
You're like, what is this lawyer Slack shit? We're all over this. I mean, that's really
So
cool though, because
yeah,
that never even crossed my mind as somebody who was an
yeah, no,
attorney buying a
we want
house.
to get it out. It's something we've been kind of slowly building. We're getting ready to like really start to push it out there because it is. I mean, essentially, if you're a lawyer that wants to buy a home, you should absolutely go through us. I mean, it will cost you no additional money. Actually, what it will do is save you a lot of money. There's nothing that's all upside, hey, frankly, and you're gonna get as opposed to like some random whoever walking to a bank, or if you call a
Right.
call center, you're going to get some
Right.
Yahoo.
Right. Right.
Anybody who works with us are loan officers who specialize in dealing with professionals, right? They specialize in dealing with lawyers. They specialize in dealing with doctors. So, I mean, you're going to get someone who understands your employment, like what it means to work in a law firm. They're going to understand your student loan debt to income ratio. There's all these things that kind of go into factor. And, you're not always going to get the zero down, but you're going to get less down. So,
Yeah.
but I mean, it's
Yeah.
always going to be a better deal than going just straight into a bank.
Everybody, big law investor. We'll have the link in the show notes. Check it out.
Yeah,
Keith, I want
JD
to
Mortgage.
turn to another JD Mortgage. I want to turn to another subject matter,
Sure.
which I believe I know the answer to. Is legal tech bullshit?
Yes.
Okay.
Largely speaking.
Next question. Yeah. All right. Go ahead. Give me your thesis, because I like it.
Well, I mean, legal tech is not bullshit and is it is Schrödinger's cat. Legal tech is Schrödinger's cat. It's simultaneously bullshit and not bullshit at the same time. I feel like a lot of the culture around legal tech is bullshit.
That is bullshit.
Right?
I agree.
There are all these like nonsense about what it is, and people, all these people who are ninjas, no income, no job, type of situation, who are having like all these attitudes and like what it means to be legal tech, and 5 years ago they were cloud experts, and 4 years ago they were blockchain experts, and 3 years ago they were crypto experts, and
Right.
now they're
You forgot the
AI
metaverse.
experts. Skip metaverse. They were metaverse. Oh, metaverse. We've got to open law firms in the metaverse. And, it's like people forget these things. It's like, I don't know, like my memory works. It's like, I've, seen you change all of like, what,
Right.
all
Right.
that I think is bullshit. Technology, appropriately developed technology, deployed in an intelligent way, and that is then adopted and trained within law firms is well underdeveloped, undersold, right?
Yeah.
Lawyers are largely Luddites. They are feel bound by precedent. They are restricted by bar associations and disciplinary boards and ethics opinions. I mean, do you remember back when there were all these ethics opinions about like it's okay to like to not have an on-premises email server and that you could have your email on the cloud. Like
I
people
know.
were not doing that until all the ethics boards wrote opinions on it.
Can I use Google Docs? Yeah, I remember like every ethics opinion ever in like 2011.
I remember I talked to the head of Google Docs. I could go find somewhere on Associate's Mind. I talked to the head of Google Docs at the time.
Yeah.
Because the guy who was the lead product developer, and we had like an hour-long conversation going through like why ethics boards, and we were like going back and forth, and like we had I remember that literal conversation.
It was so funny. They were obsessed with like one feature of one product suite. It was so crazy to me.
It was so unusual. So like, there's all this, that's a whole nother layer of bullshit in the way of all this, but that, law firms, it's just, it's such a multiple problem. Law firm, only lawyers can have equity in law firms. Okay.
Oh
well, then
boy,
that means,
now we're doing ABS. Yeah, let's hit that. Why not?
no
right?
shit. Like, do you have to, if you're in a regular company, oh, no one can have equity unless you have an MBA. Like,
Right,
what?
right, right.
Well, like, what a
Sorry,
load of shit
Chester, you're
that
not
is.
also a plumber. You cannot buy into our plumbing business. It's weird, guilty
Yeah,
stuff.
exactly.
Yeah.
Like, no, you can't own 1% of that. I mean,
Right,
you
right,
know, all that becomes a problem. So suddenly you get people siloed with only one area of domain expertise,
right,
practicing law.
right.
They don't know how to run a business. They don't know how to manage a business. They don't know how to operate, market, anything. They certainly do whatever. And, you know, then I've had conversations in small, literally in big law,
Yeah,
where they actually have a CTO. So the guy is, they have a full time,
yeah,
they're paying this guy hundreds of thousands, if not
right,
millions of dollars a year to
right,
operate their, multinational, thousands of employees and lawyers. Comes in, they talk, leaves, and then it's just the lawyer room, and they're like, haha, what a bunch of bullshit that dumbass was saying. Because he's not a lawyer. Like, that's all that matters. Like,
yeah.
there's this,
No
there's
trust
this,
for anybody who's not an attorney. Yeah,
yeah, there's this guild mindset that really uh hampers operational efficiency, technology adoption within law firms in a huge way. And it's too bad and it's sad. And so I mean, legal tech could be, I mean, 10 times bigger than it is. I mean, we were talking about this before we got started. I mean, the other
well,
thing is,
total addressable market is something that people rarely talk
yeah,
about.
everyone misses the TAM of the legal industry. There's 1.3 million lawyers. That's it.
And just so
That's
if you're not familiar with that term, that's like, how many people are buyers effectively. And then like,
correct.
that's not even like everybody who owns a law firm. That's just like all the lawyers.
Yeah. I mean, there are
Pretty small.
really, it's very small. I
Yeah.
mean, that's why there are no really, people like to talk about, if it was in big law, you talk about something like Relativity, which is the biggest e-discovery platform. Everyone's like,
Right.
oh, they're so big. No one who knows what shit is. It's solo small firm. Like Clio. People are like,
Right.
oh, Clio is this big. And look, no offense to Jack and all the Clio people, lovely people, but like, their market cap size is the equivalent of like 1Password.
Yeah.
Is anybody going around like being like 1Password is going to change, how people use computers? It's like, no, it's a small company. Like, and
Yeah.
it's just not big realistically.
Relatively speaking.
Yeah,
So
relatively.
Clio, if you want to sponsor us, you're a big company.
Go for it. Yeah, I mean, no, and again, I'm not saying anything bad about them. I'm just saying,
Yeah. No, I get it.
people don't understand. Again, because lawyers are so
They're inside the bubble all the time. Yeah, absolutely.
they only think of themselves. They don't step outside and understand the rest of this. Is that they're really a very small part of. I mean, think of business.
Business and shit. Yeah, exactly.
Like,
Like,
you're trillions and trillions of dollars. I mean, the legal industry is small. It's very small in relative terms.
I want to do one more thing with you, which I know is another topic that you enjoy. Well, one more thing, and then we'll get into the last segment. But one thing lawyers are good at is doing just like the craziest bullshit when it comes to legal ethics. And
This is true.
You have been tracking that for a long time.
For years.
I would say
years.
you might be the most preeminent expert there is in terms of like whack shit that lawyers do around legal ethics. You want to give me like a good story?
Probably.
Yeah. I'll say it.
Yeah. So, I used to do it a lot on social media, and then social media started to suck like 5 or 6 years ago. So I kind of stopped.
Yeah. Social media is the worst.
So ethics wise, so what I do now, I will just, one thing is Last Week in Law, which is a newsletter.
I was just going to ask you about that. Is
that?
That,
yeah, you can go to.
That's still weekly, still coming out.
It's still weekly. Yeah. You can go to lastweekinlaw.com, enter your email address. You'll get all the assorted
I subscribe.
insanity.
Hand up.
Everyone should subscribe. It is it's crazy. I mean, people are really insane. I mean, this past week,
they are.
Respondent goes to jail. He's in this county jail. Respondent requested a visit with an inmate who he knew to be an adult film actress and whose arrest and conviction was widely publicized. Respondent had no official business with this inmate. And inmate did not request a meeting. Respondent engaged with conversation about her case, advising that he could not really help her, but then proceeded to ask the inmate if she would be interested in engaging in sexual acts with him while she was being held in jail.
Shoot your shot.
Respondent stated he would video record and subsequently publish the video of the sexual acts in exchange for putting money in her jail account.
That is crazy.
That'll get you disbarred.
I feel like that's gotta be like a standard porn plot point, though. Would you like to take dictation, Sheila? I could be in one of these. Like, that was just off the dome right there.
But, and it just goes like that forever. I mean, there are so many of these.
That's crazy. Keith, let's take a quick break, then we'll come back for a short segment. Welcome back, everybody. We're at the Counter Program. It's a podcast within a podcast. This is a conversational space where we can address usually unrelated topics that I want to explore at a greater depth with my guests. Expect no rhyme and very little reason. Keith, welcome back.
Good to be back.
I want to take things down home today. Way down home.
You're
a resident of Birmingham, Alabama.
This is true.
Let's play a little game I'm going to call Alabama Slammer. But before we get started, do you know what is in an Alabama Slammer as an Alabama resident?
Oh, geez, I probably used to at this point. I probably had way too many of them at the Floribama at some point in time.
All right, so just in case people are interested, standard recipe for an Alabama Slammer is Southern Comfort gin, sloe gin, and amaretto, along with orange juice for the rest of the glass.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, and after a while, you just can't taste it. Keith, this game is going to be pretty simple. I'm going to make a statement, and all you have to do is tell me whether it's the name of a Lynyrd Skynyrd song or something Forrest Gump said.
All right.
All Alabama. Are you ready? I'll start. Roll
Tide.
Slow.
Let's do this.
Roll Tide or War Eagle, whatever your preference is.
Roll Tide.
Life is like a box of chocolates. Is that Forrest Gump?
Forrest Gump.
Yeah, okay.
That's Forrest Gump.
Okay. All right. I'm going to make it a little bit more difficult from here. I know a little. Is that something that Forrest Gump said? Or is that a Lynyrd Skynyrd song? I know a little.
That's a Skynyrd song.
It is. Are you a Skynyrd fan? I may have posed myself here. You might just destroy this whole thing.
Not so much. I'm not particularly a Lynyrd Skynyrd fan, but okay. I have been to a Lynyrd Skynyrd concert.
Oh, you have?
Yeah, when I was probably like 19 years old. I mean, if you're going to see Lynyrd Skynyrd, seeing Lynyrd Skynyrd play in an outdoor amphitheater in Alabama is probably about.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah.
That's how I would do it.
It was crazy. I mean, that was 30 years ago, probably almost at this point.
Yeah.
But it was crazy. And it was a scene. It was definitely a scene.
As a Yankee, I love Lynyrd Skynyrd. They're fucking great.
They make
awesome
fantastic
Southern
music.
rock band. Yes.
Yeah.
All right, let's continue on. You died on a Saturday morning. You died.
Skynyrd.
Oh, all right. I got you. Forrest Gump.
Oh, man.
That's what he says to Jenny at the end of the movie.
Yep.
I feel like if I was doing the Forrest Gump voice, that might
that would give it
easier,
away. You can't do that.
Yeah. See, I don't want to do it. Okay, so you're still hot though. 2 of 3. Here's another one. Now we ain't strangers anymore. Forrest Gump or Lynyrd Skynyrd? Now we ain't strangers anymore.
Forrest Gump.
Correct. Says to the bus driver when he gets on the bus. All right, I got 3 more for you. You're cruising through here like a true Alabamian. Is that how
Alabamian?
Alabamian. All I can do is write about it. Forrest Gump, Lynyrd Skynyrd. All I can do is write about it.
Skynyrd.
Yeah. Oh man. All right. All right. You get 2 more. You have the rare opportunity to go like 7 of 8 here.
Nice.
I think this one might be easy, but we're gonna go with it anyway. Don't ask me no questions. Don't ask me no questions. Is that a Forrest Gump saying or a Lynyrd Skynyrd song?
That is Skynyrd.
All the way. Yes. Last one to close out your impressive run here. You're my girl. Is that something that Forrest Gump says? Or is that a Lynyrd Skynyrd song? You're my girl.
I mean, I know it's a Forrest Gump line, but I feel as though that could be a double yes.
It could be a double yes. So I'll give you partial credit, but it's not. Because
Oh,
I
man.
looked up the entire Lynyrd Skynyrd song list
There you go.
the other night because I have a lot of free time. Keith, you have proven yourself as a true Alabamian. I'm really impressive. Really impressive. Plus, we learned a lot about legal tech and big law. Thanks for coming on, man. We'll have to do this again sometime when you launch your new venture.
Yeah, new venture will be later this year. It'll be exciting, but for the lawyer folks, we're pretty fully locked in. I mean, if you're a lawyer, you know, lastweekinlaw.com is where you can get the newsletter, which is like a weekly digest of stories around the legal industry, plus the ethics insanity at the end every single time. Sidebar.net, which is our private community for lawyers. We've got a couple hundred lawyers in there who are all just chit-chatting about, their practice or just doing the same bullshitting that Jared and I are doing right now.
Right.
And then there's biglawinvestor.com, which if you are curious about anything related to money, you don't have to be a big law attorney. But if you want money advice and you're an attorney, we're sorry, we're your only choice, but we try and do a really good job out of it.
Hey, It is what it is. Thank you, Keith. Check those things out, and we'll talk soon, man.
All right.
Thanks for our guest. It was Keith Lee of Big Law Investor. To learn more about Big Law Investor and get access to all the free stuff that Keith was talking about, visit biglawinvestor.com. That's biglawinvestor.com. Now, because I'll always be a 90s kid going around saying obnoxious shit like, but you ain't got no legs, Lieutenant Dan. This is why I don't do accents. Whose true passion is burning CDs for anyone who would listen. I'm now just doing the modern equivalent of that, which is creating Spotify playlists for every podcast episode that I record, where the songs are tangentially related to an episode topic. This week's playlist is all about 1994. That's the year that Forrest Gump came out, and Pulp Fiction, by the way. And it was also an amazing year for music. Just listen. I'll do that again. Just listen. It's sponsored by Blockbuster Video. Wait, what's this Netflix thing I'm hearing about? Like you get DVDs in the mail? It's kind of crazy. I'm just kidding, by the way. Blockbuster Video hasn't sponsored shit because they're defunct. Join us next time when I will eat an entire turducken by myself.